Buddies, it's the Franchisor Hot Seat. Coming up next. All right, Mitchell, let's start with you. How did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise backstory?
Yeah, great question. So as you can tell behind me, hardcore Texas Tech alum and graduate and love my university. But most Red Raiders find their way to DFW. Needed to make money. I only moved to Dallas with $2,000 to my name. So I went to Sewell Lexus Dallas and was selling cars and sold a car to a guy that worked at a fast casual brand. And he said I'd be great at something like franchise sales. And I had zero clue what that meant. So after 2 years in the car business and that grind kind of weighed on me, and obviously enjoyed Saturdays and watching football. So got to work every single Saturday in the car business, not one break off. So ended up at the fast casual brand, worked my way up from a sales coordinator all the way to a director in 3 years. I really enjoyed my time there, but COVID obviously was very hard on restaurants, and franchise sales is not needed when you're trying to get through surviving COVID, what it did to restaurants. So spent some time at Driven Brands for a year while doing a conversion model. And then a recruiter reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to get back to true franchise sales, work remotely as you see, and report to our CEO at a brand called Buddies. And I've loved it. I'm now coming up on 4 years in April, moving to the head of franchise development with the brand.
It's awesome. So biggest question, and I love that you went from car sales to franchise sales, because as hard as car sales are, I think franchise sales could be the most difficult thing in the world to sell. You're trying to convince someone to invest their life savings into business they have little to no control over. How did that experience translate, and what was like the awakening of, oh, this is different?
Yeah, I would tell you that car sales physically is draining on you. You're in a suit in Texas in the summer, running around the dealership. It's hot. You got a deal going on one side. They're moving into your finance department. You're running back to make ready to get the car, right? So the physical drainage in car sales was brutal because you always had to be on top of your game. And most car salesmen at Sewell, they have a cool program where they put you on a kind of a training budget. So we were salaried for a little bit, but obviously as we moved to sales, we went straight commission. So, that role being straight commission, 22 years old, my wife at the time was my girlfriend, student teaching. So I was the only income. And I told you we didn't move to DFW with a lot of money. So, I just had to hustle and grind, but it set me up to be such a good salesperson. If you don't know about Sewell, they're a luxury car dealership in Texas. They were some of the first people to do car washes, give loaners to customers if they need it while their car is getting serviced. So they've really been ahead of their game, and they have a great sales program here. I went through 6 months of training with each department, but also following people and learning and also going through their sales program. So it did a really good job of setting me up to getting into franchise sales. Most people that you see get into franchise sales typically are in some way, shape, or form involved in franchising already, where they already own their own franchises and sold them, or they were in ops for a long time and wanted to change, right? You typically see people in my role closer to 50 and beyond. So I really think it just was a hyper speed of getting to where I was. But franchise sales was different. It's more of a mental grind, right? Sometimes in my day, I'm making 80 to 100 cold calls a day, right, to catch up on my pipeline. Got to be on top of it. And especially working from home, there's that interior motive too, that you have to get up and grind every single day, just like we are here 9 o'clock in Texas time. So all that to be said, there's different challenges for each one. But franchise sales, yes, the investment, the time you take with them, it is a huge challenge and something that's more mental rather than physical.
So carry that. I want to keep on this because I'm fascinated by it. So obviously, like the physical grind of selling cars. I'm curious, what was the magic advice on how did you work with someone to help them see the dream of owning the car? And on the franchise side, in my opinion, the biggest miss in franchising on the sales side comes from call one.
Yep.
If you screw up in a car dealership on that first interaction, you turn off the buyer, there's a million different places that they can go and find a car. So how important is that interaction? What was the secret sauce in car sales that you've cross-applied to helping people see and visualize the dream?
Great question. And I will say this, typically, if you remember, Nick, for the cars that you've purchased or leased, you come in with an idea and you leave with something else, right? That's 90% of the sales is just getting them into whether it walk in the showroom floor or they call in on the hotline. At Sewell, they were so large, they were doing, 350 to 400 new car sales with about 50 salespeople. And then the pre-owned side is, 300 to 400 with about 30 salespeople. So this dealership alone had 80 salespeople, right? And so you had to be the first one to answer. You had to be kind of not walking around the parking lot, but you just, be looking out the windows and seeing, right? So you have to really go from kind of a shark to just trying to get that customer to then kind of sitting back and letting them tell you what they want, right? Whether it's, sedan or SUV, four-door, whatever, they're going to come in and tell you something specific. And the first thing you want to do, obviously, hey, absolutely, let me get your driver's license. Let's get them on a test drive, right? Because if you get them in the car, see the car, feel the car, touch the car, drive the car, the percentages go up quite a bit. And then that's really where the magic happens, so to speak, just like on a first call. You're kind of just sitting there and taking it back, but you really want to humanize the situation, right? If you're going to sit there and talk about the car, there's going to be a million other salespeople that do it, right? You have a little amount of time to really have a core conversation with them, right? Where they're from, where they went to school, what's their family situation, how many kids they have, where they go to school, what hobbies do you do, what do you enjoy, right? For me, it's obviously very clear that, I have my Texas Tech ring on it at work and other things that I love sports and I can easily transition anything to that on that side. But I want to just dive deep in those 5 to 10 minutes of that test drive just to really get to know them. After that, you go to your office and you kind of walk through, hey, you love the four doors, right? You love the safety features of the SUV compared to the sedan. You love the light interior, right? Well, I know you wanted black. I got dark gray with light interior, everything you wanted. And then I'm kind of working my way back with some of those things. And it's the same exact thing when we're qualifying and prospecting, right? I have one chance to make a lasting first impression, and it's harder because it's on the phone on a cold call, right? So most of the time, what I do is before I call my lead, I'm getting on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, trying to find some similarities, working some things in because I don't know how many actual franchise salespeople do that. But I want to try to take that 15-minute conversation to a 30-minute conversation, or that 30-minute conversation, a 45-minute conversation, to just add that personal touch. Because again, 90+% of the leads I talk to aren't going to buy from me, right? And that's okay. But they stay in my pipeline. They stay in my email campaigns. And over time, and I've had this probably half of my deals, I've been 12+ month deals because now's the right time, whether they did sell that property and have that cash, or they just had cold feet because it was their first business and now they're ready to jump in because their boss just put another 12 months of work on them to do in 6 months, right? You don't know what people are going through in life, and you don't know if they're ready to actually jump off the cliff into the pool or the lake of franchising. And so staying engaged with them through constant email and text campaigns on a monthly basis has brought more deals back to me. And rather than just me being buddies, because I get that all the time because I work at Buddies, they actually remember my name and continue to want to engage in conversation. So long answer, Nick. Sorry about that, but hopefully it's just some cool things to pull from.
I love this conversation. I mean, let me give a few comments. Actually, first question: out of 100 people that walked onto the lot, how many you would talk to? How many would buy a car?
I had a higher rate than most, but I would say probably a 20 to 30% hit rate. Right. In terms of them buying a car. Now, that day, obviously, like on a Saturday, that's your busiest day, people coming in. But yeah, I'd say probably 20 to 30% hit rate if they walk into the dealership, and probably 10% or less on calling in from the sales line.
So what's fascinating about that, and this is where like there's at some point there needs to be a merger of how franchise sales works and how automobile sales work. Because some of the things that I'm hearing, one is like the equivalent of them walking on the lot, they became a lead. Now, if we back out of that, it's all the thing you and I have talked about this, but it's the noise creation. They saw their friend driving a car. They saw the car on the road. They saw a commercial. There was some sort of trigger that made them interested in the first place. Now they're in the lot. Now here's the difference between a lot lead and a franchise lead. A franchise lead is like standing outside the lot and be like, maybe I'll walk over there, but they're not ready yet in some scenarios because they're trying to feel things out. A car person, someone that's buying a car, now I would imagine you saw this all the time, even in the ones that with your personality you can break down and say let's have human to human conversation, knowing that there is a sales component to it. But the guard is also up by the buyer because they're like, okay, now I'm being sold and I'll give you a little bit, but it's like when you walk into a house. So if I'm trying to extract some of the challenges, one, at a car dealership, you said you walk in to buy something and you leave with something else. In a franchisor, unless you're a multi-brand franchisor or you're a franchise broker, there is nothing else. They've walked in and there's only one thing that you can sell. Two, the equivalent, like when you get them in the car, the test drive is the discovery day.
Yep.
And because there's so much time that goes beyond there and the discovery day, you're not getting the candidate into the car very fast. And like, how do you transform that to have a different type of approach to the sales process? So I like everything you're saying, I would say like there's at some point, there's a magical conversation here that says, how does that all relate back to franchising? Because there are parallels that could make it work very nicely, you know?
And Nick, I'll throw one out there too. So, I told every prospect that came through, hey, I'm going to work hard for you on the sales price. I'm going to work hard for you on your trade-in price, and I'm going to work hard for you in the back for financing. You're not going to win all of them, right? If you won all of them, we wouldn't be selling cars. And at the end of the day, we still have to make money too, right? And I have to make a living as well too.
And you're commissioned on each of those three?
I am commissioned on the car sales. Most people will do a 20% of gross sales, but since Sewell Lexus had so much volume, we are on a percent, or not a percent. Like if I leased a car, it might be $350. If we financed a car, it might be $400.
But not on each of those three things.
No, I typically on the finance side, I wouldn't. The trade-in, if they said it was $20,000 and I told them it was 19 and got that deal, I would get a percentage of that.
Got it.
And the bigger point here is Nick, if you're going to join a franchise, you're not going to like every single thing with us, right? But there's a reason we keep everybody in the same sandbox, because if we let you just go rogue, then you might as well just stay and do your own thing, right? McDonald's doesn't look for chefs. McDonald's looks for operators, right? And so that's what I tell all my prospects, just like I told my customers in the car business, is you're going to win some things and you're going to like some things, and there's some things that you're just not going to like, but you're going to have to be able to understand and have those conversations with franchisees. Have them like, hey, I don't like this. And they might provide a different insight or opinion why you need to like it and why it brings value. And some things you just might not like. That's okay. We're family. Families fight. We're not going to agree on everything. But at the end of the day, if we have the same common goal, same common vision, and I'm on my side doing everything I can to help you be a good franchisee, and you're doing everything you can to help continue the brand and increase your sales and your staff and your customer base, continue to support them, then we're going to have that commonality and that common goal. So I take some of those things of breaking it down, same as I do with prospects when we get a franchise.
So a few things that I heard of that. One is, and this is, in my opinion, a miss by franchisors back to their executive or their sales team. The miss ends up being in a car, you're selling a car, you have three things, the areas that you can make money on as a dealer. And you said to the customer, we want them to feel like they won on some of it, but not all of it, so that we can be in business. If I look at your role, it's not just about signing franchisees. It's about getting a franchisee in who will open successful and perform greater than average, who will then scale the business. And so if I'm a franchisor, no one listens to me on this point, by the way, but I'm incentivizing you as my sales lead, my development lead. You're getting a bonus or commission on each three of those triggers, because now your lens on who you're bringing in becomes better. Like if you wasted a Saturday talking to someone who can afford a basic Honda, even because the Lexus is going to be just too much for their budget.
And if it was too much, I'd take them over to the pre-owned side and try to sell a pre-owned car.
Right. But you don't have that in franchising. And so that's where I think there's some magic to like for the brands that find the transformational pathway in sales, it's listening to this conversation and extracting like how do we get this going here. The other thing that you said is like, look, in a franchise, we're looking for operators. Well, the reality is a Lexus dealer is looking for operators too. They want they want you to buy the car, continue to buy their cars, lease or buy, invest and be a part of the Lexus family. But along that pathway, they say, what color would you like your car to be on exterior, interior, and features? And so, in my opinion, like this is an easy example. Mellow Mushroom, early stage. I don't know if they do this anymore, but they said we don't care what the real estate is. Let the franchisee pick where this unit goes. What we care about is our menu. And so what that does is says, here are the things that a franchisee can customize and feel comfortable with, and here are the things that they can't. Like you're not going to come in and say, I mean, you can have different horsepower, but for say how the gas fuel is going to work in this automobile, it's like we cannot go and change this from gold to silver. It is what it is. And so the transformational moment for a franchisor of the future says, here's our box. Here are the things that we can let the franchisee feel like they can own and control. Therefore, this is where they feel like it's a partnership, and they bought the car and have that same sort of experience, because your closure rate on a franchise is closer to probably 1% of leads, 2% of leads versus a 20% of leads that come into the automobile center.
And one thing too is, at Sewell, there was a lot of things I already told you about. Hey, free car washes, free loaners. They'll actually, if you live in it used to come all the way out to a place like Abilene, Texas in 2.5 hours, but they will come and pick up your car from your house at a certain radius and then deliver it back to you. Right. And, a lot of dealerships do it now, but back then they're really the only one. And so they always cater to the customer. And what I do appreciate about Buddies is we try every way to, yes, do the things we need to do, but also continue to cater to our prospects. And a couple of examples. Number one, as you see franchise fees, right? The initiation fee, the country club fee, right? To get into somebody's system, I've seen an average now between 50 and 60,000 out there. Mm-hmm. Buddies has continued to stay at 40,000 for the first one since I've joined. And we're going to continue to do that. Number two, any additional you buy has for us continued and will always be $25,000. So $15,000 discount for any additional territories. The second's royalty. We give you a 0% royalty for the first 6 months. We want you to focus on your store and know that we're not trying to nickel and dime you coming out the gate, because in our business, you need to build up accounts, and off of those accounts, you'll then collect revenue, right? And additionally, for the marketing, I've seen other brands jump that marketing fund and then a brand development fund, and those can get to 6 to 7%. And for me, it all goes into marketing. It kind of makes no sense to me. So we continue to say, hey, franchisees, minimal of 2% is what we ask, but we recommend 3%. And that's going to be a blend down the middle, 1.5 to local with, we have a marketing portal and all the, printers, hangers, banner ads, drop offs, all that. But then also 1.5% for our national efforts, our SEO, Google, digital, Facebook. So some of those things that, yes, we have to be involved in just because everybody else does that. But we try to be very, very pocket oriented for our franchisees, because when you go to that real estate, that's another point. My last point here is we're very flexible. Some of our competitors, the store has to look a certain way, be a certain way. For us, we do not care. Inline, in alone, stand cap. Standalone, in cap. I blended those two. I was like, wait a second. It doesn't matter where our stores are, because at the end of the day, it's our franchisees' dime and dollar. And so we need to make sure we're looking at every real estate opportunity that comes through our pipeline to see if it's a good fit for the franchisee. Now, of course, the franchisee has to make that decision, but we do have a real estate director here on staff that will help them consult, guide, and do all those things that most real estate directors do here. Because we do have retail spaces. They're typically between 4,000 and 6,000 square feet, but they're going to be around who our customer is, right? Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Walmart. We're not going to be around Whole Foods. We're not going to be around some of the Chick-fil-A corner stores, right? Our customers are more around those kinds of stores. So we do have some more real estate opportunity because we don't have to be on Main and Main all the time. So that does help the real estate price typically too, as well as availability. And that all funnels through our real estate director to try to do everything we can to set up a franchisee for success from the real estate side.
So yeah, I mean, you're a magic sales guy. You took a question that had nothing to do with sales, and then you sold me on the brand. I mean, we were in the car, and you just took control. I love this conversation, by the way, because it's fascinating, the crossover of the two business types that you're selling. There was one other thing that you said there that I want to call out. If a franchisor were to follow it's called Stoolie. Is that what's your Lexus dealership called?
Oh, it was Sewell, Sewell.
Okay, Sewell. If they took that approach, you also just talked about support, because support is I'm going to go pick up your car. Support is I'm going to give you a loaner. Support is I'm going to have a car wash to make sure your car is clean. And so and you said they were ahead of their time. The franchisor that says, how do we get out into market and support our franchisees? You just touched on all the things that happen from a support standpoint, which in my opinion, royalties are too low across the board for franchisors because of the amount of business tools that are in creation for the success of that franchise owner. Obviously, it's still got to be profitable for them. But you talked about support, innovation, like all the things that are happening at the car dealership that translates over. And probably the thing that a car dealer could take from franchising is, how do you set that customer up to scale? What is the other things that you sell to them to keep them in the infrastructure? And I don't think car dealers have gone too far away from the automotive side, but you think even going really extreme to saying garage repair, like all these home service brands that are being created that a car dealer could say, hey, here's how we were innovative. So I think all that is fascinating. So
well, Nick, I'll add one thing to that too. The reason.
Well,
I'm back.
Mitchell's here.
Just a little commercial break. We're back now.
I love it.
But new car sales departments typically are not profitable for most dealerships, so they need everything else to supplement it, right? They want to get customers into cars and then give them free services so they come back and then add other things on top, and then maybe, appraise that car while they're in for service and try to sell them a new car or pre-owned car. Or if they get in a wreck, they're going to reach out to Sewell for the collision center side. So it all is synergies that go together, all just off of selling a car. And going over to the buddy side, specifically, we also have something called a buddies purchasing program, because we're in home furnishings, right? We rent to own home furnishings. If you've ever heard of Aaron's or Rent-A-Center, the third big player is Buddies, and we're slowly growing in that space. But we have something called the buddies purchasing program. And our franchisees, rather than having to focus on buying inventory all on their own, they can just go on our website that's very Amazon-esque, and they go and purchase product. What is awesome is we actually front the bill. So we'll pay off the vendors for 30 days, and then our franchisees pay us back typically in 30 days. So our franchisees have net 60 terms. They could get product within 2 to 3 weeks, put it out on rent, and not even owe us for 60 days. Additionally, we have a $20 million rolling line of credit with our vendors to purchase all this inventory. So obviously the buying power is huge. And our franchisees, if they're buying on their own, could not get that. Additionally, if they were doing this all on their own, they would have to get all the invoices together on their own, right? And it would be hard as heck to keep up with all those. We do simplified invoicing. So they're going to get a mid-month statement through a PDF file and then an end-of-the-month statement. There's a couple more valuable things, but that is, we also have zero distribution centers. So we don't get in the way. We're not going to hold on to that inventory. It goes straight from vendor to store. And additionally, we have zero markup. We do not have any markup. So if they spend $1,000 on inventory from Ashley's, then they're going to get charged $1,000. We don't have any markup in that. So all important things. Now there's rebates, but those rebates go back to our IT development or IT web, our purchasing department, et cetera, to support those things.
Right.
But we've really tried to take the next step in supporting our franchisees. And that's one of the most important things, I believe, is procuring inventory, getting inventory to those stores so they can put it out on rent to the customer.
All right. Another nugget that you said there that I think is important. You said new car dealers don't make money off of the new cars.
Thin margins.
Franchisors don't make money off of franchise fees. And I think that's a thing that's going backwards right now. They're thinking of that as a revenue source or as a revenue source to pay a franchise consultant. And if you take that insight and think about all the other things that you make money as a franchisor beyond that fee, it's so beautiful. Like the deal value is so high, and same with a car dealer. And so if you look at a car dealer as the avatar and say, I mean, most of them look like they have a lot of money because the beautiful buildings that are created. Obviously, that's part of the marketing, but that's the insight. If you want to build a beautiful franchise brand, don't get lost in the franchise fees. It's not where you're going to make your money. You're going to make it on the maintenance and keep of that vehicle.
Yeah, Nick, and I'll tell you this: one of my friends actually is looking at a service-based brand, just because he's in his late 20s. He's done well for himself. He can't get into something the size of us, but he can look to get into something service-based. And I told him, hey, don't focus on a franchise fee. They're not going to move from that. Don't waste your time there. Negotiate a territory size. Negotiate other things that are going to impact your business long term. Because remember, if we change franchise fees and we do a deal by deal basis, those all have to go in the FDD, right? So then the franchisees are going to be like, wait a second, you cut them a deal, but you didn't cut us. And we've been in the system for a long time. So some things just get messy and aren't worth dealing on, right? Like if I'm selling a car, I'm going to say, hey, let's just either focus on the bottom line or what's most important to you. You want to get 15 for your trade-in, we're at 13. All right, I'm going to go fight like heck, right? Let's focus on that one thing. If we focus on a million things, you and I are not going to be happy. I can't do this. I can do this. Let's see what we can do here.
That's right. Before we wrap, what is the investment to get in? How much can you make?
Great question. So all-in investment on one store is typically around $600,000. We look for $200K liquidity, $600K net worth. Our stores on average, the last 4 years, so 4 years of FDDs, is around $1 million for average stores. Now, net profit has changed because COVID has impacted not procuring inventory. We never had an issue, but just the price of it went up over time because we have a 50-50 blend of internal U.S. Inventory and external. But I've seen net profit range between 25 and 13% in 4 FDDs. So we've seen that average out now to about 18 to 20% net profit for stores. And I have all those FDDs that I can share with prospects.
Well, clearly you know how to ride this car and drive it and sell it. So Mitchell, thanks for doing this. Awesome story. Awesome talking about this topic. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, Nick. Enjoyed it and have a great day.
For Mitchell, I'm Nick. This is another Franchisor Hot Seat. Complete side note, and